Could we come to order, please? Welcome everyone in for this first CDEM Joint Committee meeting for the new triennium. Oliver advises me that I should be the chair in the interim, as I am the presiding deputy chair, and we will see what happens when we come to elections. We have, at this point, an apology from Craig Rowley for not being here in person, but he has popped up online. So I think we have everyone in the room. I might ask James for a Karakia, please.
Thank you, John. Kia mohio mai ko te Karakia nei e hono e a tātou. Whakatakata hau ki te uru, whakatakata hau ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā tara ki tai. Ihi aki ana te atakura, hei chio, hei hoka, hei hauhu, ti hei Māori ora.
Thank you, James. And again, I welcome everyone in, and a new face or two in the room. Red, I see you sitting in on behalf of Lydia. Welcome in. And Mia for Mackenzie, welcome you, Scott, into the room. And Liz, I'm just getting myself confused. Spent too long in this chamber today. The rain starts to fade. So welcome to the new mayors. For me, this is a really exciting committee that we're on. It sets up our responses and recovery and what we put in place to hopefully save ourselves over time. There are those that don't get too excited, but I think it's one of those important committees that if we don't do the work, if we're not on top of the work, then our communities suffer in time. So I am really pleased to see you all here, and thank you for your attendance. Apologies, we just have the one, as I said, for Craig, who is online. Are there any conflicts of interest? There are none. I don't believe there are any public forums, deputations or petitions. I'm not aware of any extraordinary and or urgent business, unless anyone has any matters they wish to bring forward that we cannot normally discuss. None. No notice of a motion that I'm aware of. If we move to the minutes have been moved and seconded and signed off by the Chief Executive under the powers in the interregulum period. So that work has been done. Are there any alterations or that anyone would like to make in those minutes or corrections? None? Then we don't need to reconfirm them, do we, Oliver? They're done. We move next then to item number 8.1, the election of committee chair. I will now step back and step out and let James or Oliver talk through the voting processes and then take nominations.
Invite Robin up to the table. She's going to explain voting.
Robin. And Robin, General Counsel, will describe the voting process.
It's all mine. Thank you. So this is the election of the chair. First of all, we'll go through the voting procedures, and then we'll just talk about a couple of other things, and then we'll go to the vote. So thank you.
Thank you, James. I'm assuming you will all be aware of the two mandatory voting systems that you must deploy when you're selecting a chair. One of them is known as System A. That's where the candidate for chair will be elected or appointed if he or she receives the votes of the majority of the members that are voting. That system has the following characteristics, where there will be a first round of voting for all candidates. If no candidate is successful in that first round, then we'll progress to a second round of voting, and from which the candidate with the fewest votes in the first round of voting will be excluded. And then if no candidate is successful in your second round, there'll be a third round of voting, and so on. In any round of voting, if two or more candidates are tied for the lowest number of votes, then the person that will be excluded from the next round will be determined by lot, which typically involves drawing out of a hat. Second system is System B. The candidate will be elected or appointed if he or she receives more votes than any other candidate, and that system has the following characteristics: 1 round of voting, 2 or more candidates tie for the most votes. That tie will be resolved by lot, which will be, as I said, potentially putting names in a hat and drawing them out. Is there any questions about voting system A or B? Thank you.
So, thank you. Based on that, are we going? There's a motion here that we agree to the method, and it's either A or B. So, can I have votes?
Sorry, just a comment I just want to raise, and I know it might be a bit raw, but with the changes announced recently and how this committee might look like into the future, where it might land, etc., just thinking about the next 3 years, fully recognising, I think, there's a lot of support for John in this room as far as your passion and your knowledge for this. I also think that we need to be smart around, and whether it's, I'm just going to be out there, whether it's a John and someone working closely with John, and or someone with John working closely with them, either. But I think we have to be quite smart because actually things are going to look different into the future, and let's set the next 3 years up for success with whatever that may look like. And I just thought it would be important that we raise it as a discussion now before we move forward. Yeah, and sort of either I'm sort of comfortable with both of it. I just want to raise that point that change is imminent and it's not likely to stop. So we need to be smart around these appointments.
Just following on from that, I thank you, Nigel, for raising it, because that's the elephant in the room, I guess, today, and it's about what sets us up best for the next 3 years. So my preference personally would be that it's one of the mayors supporting John, and I'm certainly prepared to move in that direction if and when the moment comes up. But it's no reflection on the qualities of the current deputy, but actually, let's read the room. We've seen where the last 48 hours have been. It's moving quickly. We've really got to just think about that because otherwise we'll be revisiting this very soon.
Are there? Well, let's see.
I'm happy to move A.
I'm happy to second that.
Yep.
For me to do it again? Carried. So, sure. All right. Thank you. So that then, taking into account that conversation around the changes that we've seen possibly affecting regional councils shortly, we need to. I'll call for nomination.
I'd like to recommend after the words appoint Mayor Murray Black.
I welcome Murray to the chair. Thank you.
What I am going to do is just seek an adjournment for a couple of minutes so I get my head round the agenda. My head more around the agenda, I should say. But I do want to acknowledge John and the incredible wealth of knowledge that you have and that you demonstrate in this area. I will be getting your cell phone, and I will be using you as a great source of advice as I progress through and support our district through this next stage. But thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Okay, thank you, members. We will come back. We've just had to readjust our agenda as we know it. So there is two things that I just want to draw your attention to. First and foremost, I want to seek the reappointment as the Deputy Mayor and maybe the Deputy Chair, sorry. And then I've just been informed that we actually do need to receive the minutes from the August meeting. So we will just do those. Are we going to get a motion? Yeah, okay. Thank you. So we do have in front of us the election for the committee chair, which has been completed. The Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee confirms that John Sunkel will, as Deputy Chair to the Civil Defence Emergency Management Joint Committee. Do I have a mover and a seconder to that? Thank you, Liz. Thank you, Phil. If there's no further nominations, all in agreement to that, please say aye. Those against, that motion is carried.
Thank you for that. With the government announcement, I kind of almost assumed my dash to the chair would be done. But that's fine. Yeah, more than happy to continue in the role, and it is a passion for me, and I guess I have that opportunity being a councillor and a bit more time and thought to put in some of these processes. But for me, the EM bill and what that means going forward, likely to fall just before Christmas, and I suspect again reasonably short submission times. So how we handle that, what does subsidiarity, what does it mean for TAs versus region and whatever. I think there's still some really important questions in there that we need to look at and submit on in the time. So one of the things I'd really like to see through. So no, thank you for the Vice Chair.
Thank you, John. The confidence in the room is with you entirely, so thank you. So as I said, we just need to go back and receive the minutes from the August meeting. And do we get some words up as well? Good. This is really easy. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to read that through. You understand the intent to that we need to receive those minutes. If I have agreement around the table, can I have a mover and a seconder? Thank you, Nigel. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Craig. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Against, that motion is carried. Thank you. So now I'll take you to 8.2, which is whatever page in your agenda, 22. And James, this is a report that you can speak to on our behalf. It's around the appointment of a Waimate controller, so thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is just the appointment of Mark Winnington from Waimate District Council as a local controller. Controllers need to be appointed under Section 27 of the Civil Defence Emergency Management Act, and that involves the Joint Committee needing to agree to those appointments. The Coordinating Executive Group have seen this and endorsed the appointment, and you'll see details around Mark's history and his career, and so I'm happy to take any questions on it. Craig, I don't know if you've got any comment regarding Mark, seeing as he's from your area, but other than that, leave you to make the appointment.
Yeah, thanks, James. And probably just seeking support for this appointment. Obviously, we're always trying to expand our capability down here. Mark's got huge experience and certainly has my full support.
Thank you, Craig. Is there any questions to clarify from the table? Happy to move. Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Phil. If there's no further points, I'll put that motion. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Those against, that motion is carried. Thank you. That takes us through to item 9 on our agenda. And again, who's going to speak to this? James, thank you.
So this is just looking at previous actions following previous joint committee meetings. As you'll see in the report, most of them are complete. There's one still in progress, which is agreeing to a recovery work program being developed for consideration by the committee. This was presented to the Coordinating Executive Group at its last meeting, so it's ready to come to this committee. We'll do that in February. It's worth noting there's some financial implications with that we'll need to discuss with you. but that orange one is in progress, and you will see it at the next meeting.
So James, that'll naturally come to our February meeting, is that what you're saying? Yeah, okay, thank you. Is there any questions in regard to this paper? It's pretty easy, James. We do have a recommendation in front of us that we note the status of the previous resolutions, so with that, is there someone willing to move and second that report? Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Liz. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Those against, that motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you. That takes us to Civil Defence Emergency Management Group Joint Report. It's on page 28 in your paper. We need to receive the report. James, is there anything that you would like to highlight in that report for us?
So this one, this one's a briefing for you on the role, and it's particularly important for the new members around the table. So I do have a presentation, and there is, in the report itself, there is a comment about a piece of work that we did last year with the mayors and the Joint Committee around roles and responsibilities. So I just want to draw the new members' awareness to that. It's based on Section 17 from the CDM Act, so it forms up what Environment Canterbury is responsible for as the administrating authority and as a member, what each territorial authority is responsible for as a member, and then what the CDM group, my office, does as the office supporting all the work we do. So I don't expect you to have necessarily read it yet, but please do at some stage, and if you have any questions that come up from that, please do raise them with me. Just let me plug this thing in, and got a shortish presentation that I'll go through fairly quickly that comes from NEMA. So thank you, Katie McRae's our REMA, Regional Emergency Management Advisor from NEMA, National Emergency Management Agency. Normally she would have a paper to talk to as well in this meeting, but yeah. Help, Ollie.
Try that one instead. This is our alternate. I've got a contingency as well.
It looks like it's working. Ooh. Do I need to stop presenting first?
Okay. Our other alternative is you come down to the laptop down here.
Just give this one more go. Okay. Looks like I'm going. No. Yep. I'll move down to the other. Thanks, Holly. That looks better. Right. So this presentation starts off with just acknowledging, where we sit in the world of emergency management, and this first slide just gives an indication of the fact that from an emergency management perspective, we're getting busier, and you can see the breakdown there of particularly severe weather in blue. So severe weather events are what is causing the biggest increases, but we've had pandemics, we've had earthquakes. You know all this, but this is a graphical way of showing it. Further, when we look at the spread of states of emergencies across New Zealand, you can see here where they've all been made, and us, a large region, but also our neighbours on the west coast take up a fair proportion of those declarations of state of emergency. So, and there's nothing to indicate that that's going to change, unfortunately. So the data shows, when we look at that across New Zealand, it is mostly flooding and severe weather. And interestingly, with the weather, it is more likely that we see this in February. That's when we tend to see the cyclones and ex-tropical cyclones coming down. And then in July, which is, that shift into winter, when we see sort of winter storms start to impact on us. And the little table there, once again, just shows the types of events we've been having and by which months. But certainly, February. For Canterbury itself, and this only goes back to 2018, you'll all be aware that, we've had events happening in Canterbury much longer than that. But, there have been a number of states of emergencies, and important to note, and I'll talk more about this, that, mayors and chair of the Joint Committee become important decision makers when it comes to making those declarations. What is a hazard? So a hazard is something that can, cause an emergency. It has the potential for danger. While emergency itself is when we actually have the actualisation of a hazard impacting on us and our communities. And from that emergency perspective, we're looking at something that causes an immediate threat to life, health or property, and then requires a significant coordinated response under the CDM Act. Next, we have, the proper legal definition in the Act of what an emergency is. It's defined in the Act as caused by a happening, whether natural or otherwise, and then there's actually a list of what happenings could be, and it's everything from storms to technological failure to including a warlike activity. So it's very, very broad. Causes or may cause, important clause there, the or, so causes or may cause loss of injury or illness or distress, or in any way endangers the safety of the public and property. And then importantly, and, so there's ands with all these, cannot be dealt with by the emergency services or otherwise requires a significant and coordinated response under the CDM Act. And one thing we're starting to see now is our emergency service partners ask for that support from a significant and coordinated response, as opposed to them not necessarily being able to cope. So that's often a decision-making factor. Legislative responsibilities. So we do have, as local government, we do have specific legislative responsibilities to manage the hazards and risks and to plan and prepare for emergencies. And we've got some key legislation listed there. I think I would also add, I know it's still being worked on and built, but climate adaptation is most likely to come and fit into this space in the work that we do in the near future. What does the Act do? What is the purpose of the Act? It talks about the sustainable management of hazards. So it talks about us looking at how we can effectively manage hazards in the most efficient, sustainable way. And it encourages and enables communities to achieve an acceptable level of risk. And, that means councils understanding their risks and then being able to communicate that to communities and have a conversation with their communities around the hazards that are in the area or in the region, and what we need individuals and communities to do, what we can do as councils to achieve or mitigate that risk. And then it requires local authorities via regional groups to deliver planning programs, activities across reduction, readiness, response and recovery. And then in section 64, specifically for local authorities, a local authority must plan for and provide for civil defence emergency management within its district, and a local authority must ensure that it's able to function to its fullest possible extent, even though that may be reduced during and after an emergency. So, council's own business continuity planning and how you'll operate, when an emergency is happening is an important consideration. I like this, and this tends to work really well here in Canterbury. It's really quite nice to see that we act locally, we coordinate regionally, and we're supported nationally. So you as territorial authorities and also with the regional council need to plan and provide for emergency management within your local area. The Canterbury CDM Group is responsible for setting those regional emergency management policy and delivery of joint initiatives. And then NEMA is the government lead for emergency management. It is the steward and operator and assurer of the system. But I do like that heading sentence there. We act locally, we coordinate regionally, and we support nationally. Just a picture of Mark Mitchell there. I'm sure you're all aware that Mark Mitchell is our Minister for Emergency Management, Recovery and Police, and a few other things. But he is a great proponent for supporting the work that we do in emergency management. Some examples here of our partners and stakeholders that we get involved with. We do have iwi in our group plan. We enabled an iwi representative to sit on the joint committee. That previously was Elizabeth Cunningham. She's resigned or retired from that role. We're still seeking a replacement for that person. Emergency services, businesses, lifelines, other advisory groups, welfare agencies, and a long list of people and other organisations become really key in enabling us to do the work that we do. So what is a civil defence emergency management group? So under the Act, we are required that each territorial authority becomes a member of the Regional Civil Defence Emergency Management Group. It is worth noting here in Canterbury that that includes Kaikoura down to Waimate, but Waitaki, that does have some of its area in the Canterbury Regional Council area, forms up with the Otago Civil Defence Emergency Management Group. So we've got 9 councils, plus the regional council that form our one. Section 17, which I referred to around that Memorandum of Understanding, sets out our functions, and it asks us or tells us to identify and assess and manage our hazards and risks, consulting and communicating about risks, as I've already talked about, implementing or identifying and implementing risk reduction measures. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of these as we go through. Maintaining and providing suitably trained personnel for civil defence emergency management, so your own council staff who come and work in your own emergency operations centres, and anyone else that you need from a recovery point of view or parts of the other R's. And then maintaining and providing services, information and other resources for civil defence emergency management. And a lot of those are covered in that Memorandum of Understanding. The structure itself, so we have a series of territorial authorities. The mayors come from those to form the joint committee, as we've got here, and mayors or other elected representatives. And it forms that governance, accountability, does strategic planning, and thinks about regional policy for emergency management across the region. Below that, we have the Coordinating Executive Group, and Will from Kaikoura here is the chair of our Coordinating Executive Group, and will typically be here at our meetings to support the work we do. But there's chief executives of the local authorities and other senior representatives from emergency services and other co-opted members. So, for example, our Lifelines coordinator, Lifelines manager is also a member. And they advise the CDM group on activities that we're doing, what we need to do, implement group decisions, and they oversee the group plan. So we have a group plan and they ensure that we are meeting that, or if not meeting it, what we need to do to try and meet it. And then we have the group office, which is where I sit, based over in the Justice and Emergency Services precinct. So we are council staff who are employed by Environment Canterbury to provide that technical emergency management expertise to the group. And then below that, if we're up at the top where we've got the territorial authorities, you have your own staff providing emergency management support in your own territorial authority. Just here, just quickly from a group office perspective, I've already talked about the regional council being our administrating authority. I've got just a quick diagram here of the regional structure. We've recently revamped that and made a few changes, but we have two team leaders. We have a manager of MTech, which is our Emergency Management Training Centre. Just for your awareness, that's a private training establishment registered under NZQA. And then our Group Recovery Manager, Richard Ball, who's sitting behind me. And then a number of advisors that support the work we do, and the ones in pink are some potential new ones that we will talk to you more about in the February meeting. I'm the Group Manager, Group Controller. Just for awareness, there are 5 other Group Controllers that we have available to us. So Phil Mackay, who's one of my team leaders, Richard Ball's a Group Controller, and then Brett Aldridge, the Director of Operations at Environment Canterbury, and then Ken Taylor and Don Chittick, who are ex-Environment Canterbury staff but now volunteer as controllers. Our CDM group, we are funded, or the group office is funded through a targeted rate through Environment Canterbury. That targeted rate is actually a uniform annual general charge, UAGC, and we operate with a devolved model, meaning that each council has to fund and support its own emergency management team, and we know that that varies greatly depending on the size of a council across the region. Group office coordinates and leads a work program across the whole group that each council is involved in. And one of the key parts around that is that over time we're trying to get more alignment across all of our long-term plans around the work that's required in that group off or that group work program. And the work that we do is reported to the coordinating executive group and the joint committee quarterly, and certainly welcome questions and comment from you as we report on the work that we do. Coming back to the 4 Rs, so the reduction, readiness, response and recovery, I'm just going to go through each of these quickly and particularly highlight how you as elected members and your own councillors can support each of these pieces of work that we do. So the first one in that reduction space, and there's some different figures that get bandied around, but we know that when we spend $1 on reduction, we save considerable amount in response and recovery, between $4 and $13. So what can elected members do to support reduction? It's supporting your council's funding for programs of work that mitigate the impact of natural hazards. From a regional perspective, that's things like having stop banks in place. For you, some of that's around, council decisions to reduce exposure through your district planning, coastal adaptation, planning urban growth strategies. So it's about building in places where we minimise the risk of a hazard having an impact on them. And supporting any initiatives, and these are usually community initiatives, that increase the initiative and the readiness of our communities for emergencies when they occur. In the readiness space, so this is getting ready for it, so support the CDM group to plan and prepare for emergencies, support your own district councils and city councils to prepare and plan for emergencies. Take an active interest in what your council's emergency management arrangements are and how they work, and as I said, support your teams with that. And then promote and encourage the preparation of community resilience and recovery plans. And most of our councils are now doing fantastic work in your communities around developing specific community resilience and recovery plans and response plans. And then, that need to support and strengthen community connectedness goes a long way in seeing better outcomes for our community when emergencies actually occur. Into response, so I suppose response gets a lot of the limelight, though I certainly want to make sure you're aware that, there's a lot of other stuff that we need to do, and, places where we can have a greater impact and hopefully reduce responses. But it's the actions taken immediately before, during and directly after an emergency to save lives, protect property, and to help communities recover. And, as elected members, mayors, we're looking for you to inform our controllers of anything that you're seeing in the community of escalating issues. Be a champion for the response effort. My take is that when we are talking to the media, the controller should be talking to the media, but to have you stand alongside, support, and talk about the things that you want to see your community doing goes a long way in helping our communities in that response phase. You will be the eyes and ears for members of our community, so help direct them to the right place to get the support they need. That might not always be council support, it might be to, Red Cross or a non-government organisation or another government entity of some sort. So, think about how you can do that. And then a really helpful thing is dispel rumours, correct information, and validate issues for the public. It can be really, really helpful. When to declare a state of emergency. So states of emergency need to be declared by a mayor or another authorised elected official. Excuse me. So we declare states of emergency when an event otherwise natural or otherwise has occurred, and it meets the definition of the emergency. So may cause loss of life, endanger the safety of the public, etc., and cannot be dealt with by the emergency services or otherwise requires that significant and coordinated response. And when we look at that, it's, as I said, it's the mayor. Oh, we've dropped out, Ollie. Do you know why that is? Oh, no, we haven't. Cool. So the mayor or the regional council chair or other certain elected officials, and certainly Murray now is the chair of the joint committee. You've got the joy of doing this for the region. Are able to declare states of emergency. One thing that I'd like to just say here, and we have been not caught out, but we've had to do a bit of checking previously with some of our declarations. When mayors are not away, if you're up overseas or somewhere else and you're unable to declare a state of emergency, you should have a delegation for you or a standing order of who can fill in for you if you're not there. And we have experienced that once where we had to go back and check that we were able to make that declaration officially. So please do check that. Controllers can't declare. So I can't declare a state of emergency. It has to be an elected official. But once that declaration's made, the group controller and our local controllers become in charge of the operational response. And so we have to, under the Act, direct and coordinate any resources made available to us. I've got to follow any lead from the national controller should there be a national state of emergency. Likewise, your local controllers have to follow my lead if I ever needed to do that. And it, in my experience and even in previous events before me, we haven't had many times that we've needed to do that, but the power is there. And then some additional responsibilities for mayors and the chair. So the mayors and chairs and their deputies have additional responsibilities during response, including supporting your controller, sharing information and keeping your own councillors informed. If they're working in a vacuum of information, they'll tend to go and find their own or make their own things up. So the more you can support them to understand what's going on, the better. Having that visible presence in the community to maintain public confidence, and liaising with external agencies, including central government, and we have often seen mayors being quite instrumental in getting support from central government during emergencies and in recovery. So a key role for you. And then when we move into recovery, it's the coordinated effort and process to bring about that immediate, medium-term and long-term holistic regeneration of a community following an emergency. And, there will be multiple facets to this. It becomes very complex and it's long-running and it costs more than the response phase of it. It becomes a subject to close scrutiny from the community. We do get scrutinised during a response, but during this phase, people go through that cycle of anger and all the other things that happen post-event. It typically comes out in this recovery phase. And so pre-planning needs to be in place, and it needs to be implemented from day one of the response. We need to start thinking of recovery straight away when an event happens. So that preparation, that pre-planning is also a readiness responsibility. It doesn't just happen when a recovery needs to be put in place. And then for you as elected members, what can you do to support recovery? Listen to your community, hear what are the pains, what are the pinch points for them. Support the staff that are working on recovery. They have a hard job. They will be making, and controllers will end up making unpopular decisions. But we need to work with, supporting our community, but sometimes those decisions are unpopular. And show that political leadership, checking on scrutiny and provision of resources that the recovery team need. A wee bit here on useful resources. So just prior to the meeting, I gave you a little pack. In that is all of these tools that are highlighted or linked there. So there's a top tips, there's a before, after, and during from NEMA. There's a guide, our Canterbury guide there, and I've also included a bit about our Canterbury standard operating procedures for declaring states of emergency. I'm not going to go into detail of that, but I might talk more about it at our February meeting, or just check in with you that you're comfortable with what it says. Other than that, I'm happy to take any questions or comments regarding the presentation.
Thank you, James. That's very thorough, and I guess it's good for us at this level to work through this. I'm sure that we've all been through that as an induction process in our own councils. But I just want to make a comment that when Minister Mitchell visited us in the recent wind event, I think he spoke about in his 2 years in that position, in those 24 months, he has been part of 19 declarations across the country. So it's really important that we highlight and consider how we need to be prepared, and those 4 R's are a good reminder of that. So I have a question, I think, coming from Dan. Thank you.
Thank you. Mia Murray, just a couple of points and questions. I agree, Minister, when he's ever visited or during those events, he always uses the word textbook and how we run things. So, and that's a reflection of Canterbury, he says. So it's always nice to hear that from him, and high praise indeed from the Minister. I just wonder at some stage, James, whether you could factor it in, especially for new mayors, a visit to the group office and perhaps show us how the operation works there through that time. I know I certainly would welcome a refresher in there at some stage.
More than happy to do that. We can arrange a visit, and I'd also like to make the offer that if any of the mayors would like this presentation or some support with this presentation, because I know some of you have already had your emergency managers do it, but if you want some support, I'm more than happy to come and do that alongside your emergency manager to support them with a presentation to your councillors. So just yell out and I'll do my best to be there and support that.
the other is this. It's a really good book, but can I suggest the photos are well out of date? These are. I'm not personally worried about who's in there, but I think it's time to be refreshed. But there's possibly plenty of photos in the cache of events locally. I'll just make that point. And from your, as I said, I'm not worried about who's there. There's better looking people over there than me. Thank you very much. Yeah. The other is just that unusual period between elections, right? And we had, and thankfully, the minister was able to step in. There was some talk about that being looked at and considered, because when it's might not have been sworn in, but the vote's beyond contention. To me, that does seem ridiculous that you're not able to declare an emergency through that time. And whether that's a hangover of the legislation or something that needs to be adjusted, just wondered if there's been any reflection on that, because we wouldn't be the only area that's experienced it over that period.
Yeah, we experienced it, but also Southland and Otago experienced that exact same issue. As far as I'm aware, Dan, I don't know of any work to change it, but there's an opportunity with the EM bills. There's a new EM bill likely to be released in Parliament and then through to Select Committee. They're still expecting before the end of the year. So there's opportunity to comment then. The other piece, and I'm not quite sure myself where this fits, but what's happening in the Local Government Acts, I think it's more the Local Government Act that dictates what mayors can and cannot do in between elections. But let's keep that as a hot topic and keep awareness of it.
Just while there's the opportunity, just to say thank you for the support of group through the most recent event. As always, I've personally found the support we get, and especially as you're going through that declaration side, excellent, and that advice and walking alongside us to make sure we're doing the right thing, superb. So to new mayoral colleagues, group does a great job in that space, and they've always been there to support us through that time, and I've certainly appreciated it in the unfortunate times that we've had to make those decisions. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I have a question coming from Phil. Thank you.
Thank you, Murray. Just more of a comment, and this is to new mayors. Don't be scared to do a state of emergency. You're better off to be told off for half an hour for going too early than being told off the rest of your life for going too late. And because one thing that you see, that I've seen many times, is the Civil Defence Emergency Group is a well-oiled machine. You just hand it over to them and they look after it all. We might think that we know everything. We don't. These guys know, and just don't hesitate. Don't think, I'm going to look a bit silly doing this. You won't. So that's my advice.
Thank you, Nigel.
And always seize the opportunity of a civil defence emergency.
Thanks, Phil. That's Scott Aronson, Mackenzie from Twizel. Really interesting with what you guys are saying, and I really appreciate it. We're in a little bit of a vacuum where I live, and in Twizel, we're pretty remote, and it's we're highly reliant on. We don't have a local area controller, so from my perspective, if we've got an issue, I'm it. So yeah, it's like with the winds incident we had just recently. I know the rest of Canterbury got hammered, and I was speaking to one of our local guys who works for the council, and I said, we've got a welfare group and we're set up just as a welfare group. But I said to him, I says, I think we better go out to the airport because that's where we keep all our gear, and we better bring that into town. So if I can just explain the scenario, and I'll try to be quick. But the airport is on the other side of the Twizel River, which is in our hydro inundation zone. And I said, if we're going to have an incident, we need to have our gear back in town. So we basically went out there and grabbed the gear and brought it back to town. But we're sort of on our own in that respect. And I just wanted to make that point that sometimes when you're on your own, you've just got to get on and do it and make some decisions quite quickly. So appreciate what Phil's saying, and yeah, sometimes we will be making calls before we even get back to you guys. So yeah, interesting.
Just to wrap up this discussion, I guess I've seen this document because Alan's presented it to our council, but I've just had to write my column for the North Canterbury News, and I pulled out some of the information in here to, perhaps draw our community back to the wind event and how that preparedness and using the 4R analysis actually is really helpful. So I found it a really good source of information to hopefully inform our communities how we can build that resilience that you've just speaking about, because we've all got many pockets of our communities that are rurally isolated as well. So if there's no further questions for James in regard to that briefing, we do have a recommendation in front of us, and it's on the screen now. Are you happy to move that, Dan? Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, John. If there's no further questions, I'll put that motion. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Those against, that motion is carried. Thank you. Oh, darn. I had a question. Sorry. Won't. How are we going to work on progressing Elizabeth in that role as a representative from Ngāi Tahu? Have we got a process to manage that? You going? Yep.
Yeah, I'm not
Yep.
I'm not 100% sure on the way forward, Murray.
Okay.
We do have a new operations or an operational person in Ngāi Tahu who's only just been appointed, who I think will become the coordinating executive group member. And I'll work with them to work out how to approach all the runanga as to what that new, that replacement will look like, but I'm not sure at the moment.
Okay, but it'll be a work in progress.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So, now the group.
I think just to, yeah.
Thanks, James. So group managers report. Thank you.
So I've just got a short report here, and there were some things that I just wanted to highlight with you. You'll all know about the windstorm that we had. There's just some details through there about the declaration process, the dates and things. But the unusual thing was in this that it was FENZ and New Zealand Police that actually came to us and asked for that state of emergency. It's one of the first times we've really seen them proactively do that. And it's, I think it's good. It's sort of showing that there's some maturity coming in our system. And so, yeah, I was pleased they did that. I don't think this here, we obviously know that it impacted quite a lot in the Huranui and the Kaikoura area, and then impacted Southland and Otago with a slightly different part of the weather pattern. We did run out and try a rural rapid damage assessment process or a tool, and that's the first time we've used it sort of in anger. And it was immediately adopted by Southland, Otago and Wellington. So that's quite nice to know that that what we've produced is able to be used. And that particular tool was an outcome of the 2021 mid-Canterbury Ashburton floods. So the impact and the learning has created that. Lifestyle block letter. Prior to the last joint committee asked for a letter to go to two ministers around the gap that happens with, or inequalities with, lifestyle blocks. Probably fair to say the response was not what we were perhaps looking for, but it does encourage us to work with the Emergency Management System Improvement Program and the Act. So we'll keep coming back to you regarding that one. We know that it has a big impact here in Canterbury. I've attached a copy of the group work program. I'm not going to talk about it much today. However, for future reference, we will bring this to all, if not, well, most, if not all, joint committee meetings and give you an update on what's happening, and look for advice from you when we find that we're getting behind or needing to reprioritise things. So we'll be looking for that for you. And just to note that at the next joint committee meeting in February, we will have some annual plan budget discussions to come to you. And I'm just investigating at the moment and keen for any feedback from you on your interest in getting the New Zealand SIS, Security Intelligence Service, to come and present to you, particularly about the issue of foreign interference. So I've been lucky to have a number of presentations from them, and local council, because we have, we get a lot of consulates and foreign embassy staff come and visit us, can be an easy gateway for them into other parts of community. And so this presentation would mainly be focused on foreign interference and some of the things that you can do as a council to be aware of it, try and prevent it. But I'd also get them to talk about other parts of the security system that we should just have some awareness. And it's things like extreme violence, terrorism. It's not very happy stuff to talk about, but by talking about it and acknowledging it and understanding it, we can be better prepared. But if we were to do it, I would ask that we perhaps start a little bit earlier, because we are going to have a full joint committee, so maybe half an hour, 3/4 an hour earlier. And if you're in favour, I'll organise that and have them come and present. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, James, for that. Just looking around the room, I think there's a willingness for that briefing around SIS, but Will, you've got a comment?
Oh, it's just a comment on the report. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank the support that we had up in Karakia from group, both in the response and particularly in the recovery. And I think for us as a very small TA, it's really reassuring to know the skill sets and the support that we get from group. So very much appreciated. And even though it was a relatively small event affecting a small number of people, the recovery is still going on, and we're still getting that support from Richard and the team. So just wanted to acknowledge that.
That's wonderful. Thanks, Will. I think it's really important to acknowledge how we gain and get support from each other in the times of stress. So I think that's fabulous and it's good to hear. Thank you. So Dan and then perhaps Scott. Thank you. Dan?
Thank you. Just to say thank you for following up with the letter to the Minister around certainly the lifestyle issue. I noticed they've said in there, or he said in there several times, it's been transferred to X number of ministers. So look forward to seeing whether that transfer gets some answers in due course. Thank you. And around the SIS, can I just say we had a briefing at LGNZ National Council about 2 years ago. It was excellent. I was not aware myself of quite all the threats that there are, and it's very worthwhile for us. So I totally endorse us doing it. So thank you for raising that, James.
Thank you, Scott. Okay. Yeah, I think you should go ahead and arrange it as a briefing prior to the next meeting or whenever that fits in, James. I think we'd all appreciate that. Just a question coming back to the assessment, the new assessment tool. Has it met the expectations? Are there learnings from that? Is there something? Yeah.
You mean our evaluation tool?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I'll certainly come back and report more on that one. But we have run an assessment across the whole of the region. Phil Mackay, my team leader, and Rosa Wakefield, who helped us in sort of project management, came and visited each of your councils and collected some data over about 300 question points. And that's been all summarised up into a dashboard that we can make available to you. It provides us with a baseline. We haven't done one of these, or the last time we did one of these surveys, it was a national survey. The questions are different, so we can't actually compare between the two easily. So this one is a new baseline for us to work with. We'll look to do another one in a year to 18 months' time, and hopefully then we'll start to see movement and improvements following implementation of various projects from the group work program. But I will come and talk to you more about it.
So if there's no more questions around that, oh, sorry, John. Sorry, John.
Just a question, James, on the work program and the diagram you put up before around the restructuring. Where are you set at the moment, staff-wise, and ability to give effect to the work program and some of those aspirations that sit in there? And I guess then that rolls into what an annual plan budget. I guess it's one thing to bring it to us in February, but a wee bit of thought between now and then as to what are your limitations, what do you want or what do you need?
Yep. We were quite lucky in the last long-term plan that did enable an increase in staff, and that has resulted in a new team leader and a new planning position that we're recruiting for at the moment. There's 3 areas that we're looking for more support. The first being our Lifeline Utility Coordinator has been a contracted position, and Mark Gordon, for those who know him, is wanting to retire. It gives us an opportunity to look at whether we continue to contract that out, and we'd have to find a new contractor, or bring it into as a staff member. Many of the other South Island CDM groups have moved that role into it being a staff member, so that's one of the positions I'll come and talk to you about. The other is, once again, in the long-term plan, we had a 0.6 FTE for a mana whenua position that we were going to do in conjunction with Ngāi Tahu. With the recent changes that Ngāi Tahu have gone through, they're no longer able to provide the 0.4, the other part of it. And so keen to look at whether or not we stay with 0.6 or go to 0.1 ourselves, probably for, at a regional level, a treaty partnership position more than a mana whenua position. But I know that some councils, I think Christchurch City in particular, are looking at their own mana whenua positions with the local runanga in the Christchurch area. So that's the second one. And the third one is in Richard's space. We've been working through with Keegan Joint Committee quite a lot on improving and increasing the maturity of our recovery systems. And Richard is looking for a new position there to support the work that he's doing. So that's what we'll come to you with. We'll get the figures all put together and look for decisions from you as to whether we do that or look at something else. The rest of the work plan, this is fair to say, is very ambitious. There are bits in it that we won't be able to do in reality, but as far as priorities, I will work with you on trying to come up with priorities. In there, if you look at ones that have got a red line around them, they are the ones that we have prioritised at the moment. But if you see something else that you think is more of a priority, I'm more than happy to have that conversation about tweaking and changing and putting resources in the right place.
Happy with that, John? Thank you, and that'll all fold back into the February meeting.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, comfortable? Everybody, we do have to receive that report, so that recommendation is in front of you, that the Joint Committee receives the Group Controller's report. Do I have a mover and a seconder for that? Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Craig. All in agreement to that, please say aye. Those against, that motion is carried. Thank you. I think that takes us through to meeting preparation for next meeting, which is scheduled for the 19th of February. So that's just your information. And with that, I, with great pleasure, close this first meeting for this triennium. Thank you very much for the confidence that you've demonstrated me to lead this really important work, and I just in closing want to acknowledge again the support that I will receive from John and the team. So thanks very much. Can I ask James perhaps to lead us through closing Karakia? Thank you.
So closing Karakia, unahia, tapo, tapo, kia waitia, ai, kuia, waitia. Kia ora, everyone.
Thank you.